This is We Burlesque.
Hi, I'm Shimi LaRue.
This is Mimi Hurricane, and
Hi there, this is Mr. Valdez.
This is Sweaty Eddie.
Hi, this is Ivy Fairy. I am Wonder, Lust, and Pixie Dust, and you are listening to We Burlesque Season 9.
We Burlesque Season 9.
This is We Burlesque Podcast, and I am your host, Viktor Devonne, and through the miracle of fiber optics, I get to talk to nightlife individuals, often in the field of burlesque, and today is no exception. I am very excited to have another international guest, which doesn't happen a whole lot, but that's mostly because of coordinating time zones. But give it up for Dinah Dare, everyone. Hello, hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I am
And
utterly
yeah,
delighted.
time zones are delightful.
They're bad enough in the States, and we have daylight savings time. I don't even know if that's a thing overseas.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So it's currently 8 p.m. here.
8 p.m. It is 12 noon for me in Southern
Yeah.
California. So I have a friend who used to live in Bordeaux, and he was only 6 hours, but I guess I don't really have a great sense of how the proximity from location to location in Europe is. It's so sprawling,
It's
frankly,
so
would be.
spilling. It's usually about an hour between here and France, but we're currently on British summertime, so our clocks went forward an hour last month.
Uh-huh. Did
So I
theirs
don't
stay
know
the
if
same?
that's No, theirs will have went forward as well, but I
Okay.
don't know if we're different from you guys. Because
Uh,
there's some times of the year where we're 7 hours difference and other times that we're eight.
so our daylight savings time started in March of 2025,
Yeah.
and it will go until the right after Halloween in 2025.
Yeah, we're the same. So yeah,
Yeah,
it must just be the same then.
I don't get it personally, but do you find that there is a sort of oh, what do they call it? Sort of a winter gloom, that seasonal depression that sort of
Oh,
hits the European.
oh my God,
I was going to call
yes.
it the European Union, but I guess it's larger than that now.
Yeah, just olive over here. Very much so in Scotland. The clock's changing. It's light at night, it's lighter in the mornings, like it's still light just now, which is yeah, it definitely makes a difference to seasonal depression. Like I work from home and there's always a kind of running joke where you have a sunny day, everyone is so much
Sunny
cheerier on
spells.
calls. Yeah,
I've heard that
yeah.
before. Yeah.
Everyone is just so much happier. It's like, oh, depression doesn't exist anymore.
It's like one of those little commercials where you're that little bouncing ball, and suddenly the sky has opened up. Yes.
Yeah.
So where Scotland are you?
It's fine. I'm just outside of Glasgow.
What would you
Uh,
say the culture, the life, your area near Glasgow is?
in terms of kind of burlesque and cabaret,
Let's
it's
start with that, and then we can go into politically and socially if we
oh
want
yes,
to.
yes. Let's burlesque. We are small but mighty.
Hmm.
I would say we've got a bit oversaturated since COVID. A lot of shows didn't come
Really?
back.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're oversaturated in terms of performers with not enough shows. Um, but we also just had Glasgow Burlesque Festival was just at the weekend there.
Mm-hmm.
We've had performers from America and stuff come over before for that. That's a lot of fun. That's been running for 10 years. So we do have a decent scene, but it is also, as most scenes, I think, quite fractured. You've got all your little cliques, right? Which I feel like everywhere has.
Does it sometimes feel that the Americans or the North Americans coming over take away your jobs, take away some of some of the
Yes,
locals'
you're
time?
coming and stealing our jobs. No, I love it when we have people visiting because I think having visiting performers can bring something different to the scene. You can see different acts or different styles that we don't necessarily have a lot of here. As someone who's performed in America a few times last year, there is a difference in style and concepts. It's a hard thing to kind of put your finger on until you sort of experience it, and then you're like, oh, yeah, there's definitely a cultural difference in burlesque from European burlesque to North American, I think.
Okay. Would that include cultural references in addition to um, either music choices or aesthetic?
There's probably an element of cultural references. There's definitely been a couple of things that I've seen that I'm like, I don't get the joke.
Sure.
And I'm sure it's the other way around. People would come here and not get the joke.
I mean, that happens here too. I mean, if you don't
Yeah.
know the media that you're referencing and so much nerdlesque and sort of medleys that drop in sound bites, if you don't
Yep.
know, you don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully it's still
But I think,
entertaining.
yeah, as long as you enjoy it, then
Yeah.
it's fine. I think it's more in terms of, I think because there's such a bigger pool of performers over in America, there's a bigger range of creativity and different things to pull from.
Mm.
So the biggest example, and it's such a silly example, but did a Mile High Burlesque Festival last year, and there was a whole category for food.
Oh yeah.
You don't really see food themed acts here. It's such an odd thing, but you just
I mean, what are you gonna be? Sexy Haggis? I mean, really.
I mean, could try.
I think it would be a great idea, frankly. But yes.
But that's such a silly example. But again, I think it's just there's just seems to be such a wider range of different styles. Um, and yeah, creativity from over there than what I see here. Everyone tends to do not the same here. We do have different styles, but people tend to find themselves in boxes a lot, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't know if it's with the amount of festivals you guys have and the opportunities to travel and perform elsewhere, you get exposed to a lot more. Like in my head, the United States, I don't understand why yous aren't all different countries instead of states because yous are culturally quite different in some different states. It's quite like Europe to
Well,
me, like
some
Europe
people
is all
tried.
different countries. Yeah, yeah.
There certainly were some attempts over time.
It's
And now
happened.
our current administration wants to take on Canada as an entire unit too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously an embarrassment. Yeah.
Yeah, watching that from over here is terrifying and hilarious in both measures.
It's kind of the same here too. It is both terrifying and hilarious here as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I have to say, so Scotland, I think we as Americans don't really discuss Scotland a whole lot. I think Ireland does get a lot more shine in terms of representation. Again, there's sort of a homogenization when it comes to quote over there
Mhm.
when we're looking at these things. But we also do that with Northern Ireland, and we do that with any number of these smaller countries that would sort of view us like one big pod. Um, and so I think a lot of us would reduce you to, and this is a straw man, but an accurate one, I think, to reduce you to kilts, bagpipes, uh, and
Tartan.
tartan, groundskeeper Willie, kind of Loch Ness Monster, sort of that
Yeah.
right there, and also sort of maybe a a view of a sort of a lack of sophistication, if that's a fair estimation. And I'm not saying it's fair to call you that, but I would say that a lot of as we have a classism in the United States when it comes a lot to the South, we would view the villages of a lot of European countries to sort of be working class and
Hmm.
therefore not as posh and almost sort of caricature of like a yokel sort of situation. Not
Yeah.
cool, but I would say that we as a folk would do that. Obviously not accurate. I don't quite know how I expect you to defend that. But
I suppose
what do you do? What do you see when you do see Scotland so limitedly portrayed. Do you have Scottish pride?
No.
Mm.
Not even a little bit. I'm the opposite. Um, so to give an example, I have been married and divorced when I was a lot younger. I did not have we did not have kilts, we had suits. I did not have bagpipes. Yeah, most people that get married, it's a kilt
Yeah.
that the men wear. I was like, absolutely not. I hate tartan. I hate bagpipes. Um, I
What's that
am
little
not
packet called that goes in front of the guy's
a
crotch?
sporran.
Ooh, okay.
Sporran. Um, I can't stand any of it. I am not I am not particularly a proud Scottish person. So I think when people have that sort of assumption or they come over here, like if you want that, go to Edinburgh.
Mm,
That does it great. You've got the
mm.
castle, um, there's loads of things that are very like Outlander themed if you like the TV show and you want all that sort of vibe. Yeah.
Fun.
Um, Edinburgh very much feeds into that. It's massively touristy. It's a beautiful city. It's like an hour away from me. I do like it, but that's kind of where all that lives, essentially, for me. Or you can go up into the Highlands and you can kind of see it there as well. For Glasgow, Glasgow is probably the other way stereotypical in the way that the UK views Scotland, in that it is about eating and drinking. To be honest, there is a bar on every corner.
That's
There is
America
some,
too, babe.
yeah. There's some fantastic food. There's really good nightlife. There's really good shows. We've got theatres. Um, Glasgow's got a lot to offer in that respect, but it's not got that sort of, I suppose, that sort of Scottish shine that people are maybe kind of looking for.
Sure.
Um,
The broad
but I don't,
strokes. Yeah. The brave heart of
yeah,
it all. Yeah.
yeah. But that doesn't particularly resonate. And I would say as well, Glasgow is a lot more working class. Edinburgh is a lot more middle, upper class.
Middle upper class. Okay.
Hmm.
Are those lines fairly distinctive? Can you tell when you go to area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Well,
you're
we're
in
kind of
Glasgow
blending
and you,
here. We're kind of blending here because we're building. I mean, that's what gentrification's all about, isn't it? Is it sort of
yeah,
taking these areas that have been massively depressed and underfunded and then adding these buildings that are incongruous, that don't make any sense being there, and then it pushes people out. But you
yeah,
still have this infrastructure that doesn't quite make sense with the type of people that you're expecting to pay to live there.
yeah. In Glasgow, there is a area called Bearsden, which is basically the most expensive area that you can live in, and it is right next to another area that is one of the poorest areas in Glasgow, and they're literally across the road.
Mm.
Um, so it's there's dividing that way, and they
Mhm.
are sort of trying to, yeah, that gentrification is definitely something that they're trying to push. But yeah, you go through to Edinburgh, it's very much more touristy. And of course, Edinburgh also has the Edinburgh Fringe Festival every August, which is the biggest arts festival in the
Yeah.
world. So it
You have
feeds off the
Spiegel
tourism
Tent too,
from
right?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's its own thing, right? That's its entirely own universe,
Yeah,
Spiegel
so
Tent. Yeah.
it's part of the Edinburgh Fringe, but it's got
Okay.
its own section,
Mm.
essentially. The Edinburgh Fringe is literally the whole of Edinburgh. There's like 500 odd venues that do
Mm.
shows. Yeah.
Wow. Still a nation that is extraordinarily cultural and has a great deal of fantastic artists that have come from, and the theatricality of it all. Everything looks like a fucking castle. For one thing, I mean, and I love a Scottish play. Don't get me wrong. Um, I mean the Scottish play, just for your
Yeah, of
benefit.
course,
Yes,
of
of
course.
course.
Yeah.
Where did your interest in the theatricality first stem from? Do you recall going to a show, or were you the kid who was like, let's do a show in the living room? Or
My mother always took us to musicals when we were growing up. So I grew up in a working class background, but my gran very much came from money. But by the time I was born, the money was basically gone. So my mum grew up with the money for a bit. So we sort of have this weird background in that we grew up going to the theatre at least once a year, twice a year, going to see musicals. And that was from quite a young age. And that sort of carried on. I've always loved going to the theatre. I've seen loads. And I think that sort of aspect always appealed to me. I always enjoyed it. I didn't do drama in school. I didn't do like much music in school. I was kind of shy. I was the kind of little emo kid in the corner with a big fringe. And I don't know,
But without
there's
tartan?
dramatics without tartan, I know. Um, I suppose I was just gonna say there's a dramatics in being the emo or the goth kid as well, right?
Yeah.
There's a flair in that,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Well, there's because it
But
was
yeah, I think
so
that's
English and UK influenced that
yeah,
the 80s goth and punk, obviously. You had your Sid Viciouses, your Susie and the Banshees,
yeah.
etc. And then you went into like your Cures and your Morrisseys. So would you say that American goths would say, "Oh, that's clearly in the same vein," if they were to see what your interpretations were as a
I would think so. I think if you had to look at it, when I was like 16, 17, and I was the big emo kid that I was at the time, we had MySpace, so everyone was on MySpace. So people were MySpace famous
Oh
from
yeah.
America and from the UK. Like you had YouTube. So I think it was very much a shared cultural moment
Mhm. Yeah,
in that
internet sort of
respect.
changed all that, didn't it? It really made us a lot more global in that
Yeah,
regard.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that's kind of very much what I grew up with. And I think that's an element of theatricality as well, going back to kind of what you were saying that
Hmm.
I sort of enjoyed. And that's probably the first time I would sort of say that I indulged in that more theatrical side is sort of dressing and
Yeah. Well, it's an
choosing to look like
outward
that.
visual representation of how we feel on the inside. But it's also, but it's seen, isn't it? So
Yeah.
and it takes a bit of commitment, it takes a lot of effort, and a lot of the wardrobe is kind of uncomfortable. So you really were setting yourself up for a lifetime in the theater, weren't you?
I really was. And you're setting yourself up as someone who stands out.
Yeah.
You're being an emo kid or a goth kid, you were putting yourself in the sightlines of people who were not. Um, and potentially putting yourself out there for criticism as well.
Indubitably. Yeah. When did you find that that would translate into you being actually on a stage?
I didn't start burlesque until 6.5 years ago, so I was 29 when I finally made it on stage.
The famous Saturn's return, I always say.
Yeah.
I always say that 29, 30, 31 is very frequently a storyline in our community.
Yeah. I think we all suddenly get to this point where we're like, oh, okay, this is kind of what we want to do. That's
Yeah.
fun.
What am I doing with my
Um,
life? Let's dance. Let's
yeah,
let's 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 do stuff.
yeah. And I think for me, a lot of that was, as I sort of mentioned earlier, I was married quite young. I
Mm,
was with my ex when I was 17 till I was 24. Leaving him and kind of working out who the hell I was took a few years, to be honest. And finding my confidence again because it wasn't a good situation.
mm.
So that sort of took a while. And I actually found circus first. I used to do trapeze and hoop, so lyra. I did that for 3 years. And then it was from there that I found burlesque because my trapeze teacher was married to a burlesque instructor. Yeah.
All right. No, we have trapeze and circus folks obviously in the burlesque world. And I don't know why
Yeah.
but you said that so casually. I was like, of course, yeah, you're a trapeze teacher. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it like it was ceramics, but yes, that actually it is, isn't it? It is as usual as that. It really often is, isn't it? So what? So trapeze
Yep.
first in your storyline.
Yes.
How did one decide? Let's go up there.
It was my current partner's sister-in-law posted about going to a circus fitness. I know it's so convoluted, like a circus fitness class. So
Nice.
never been one for the gym. She posted she was going. We got on really well. I was like, "Can I come with you?" So I think I was 26 at the time and really enjoyed it. The class was sort of half ground based and half you sort of basically did some conditioning on the equipment. And I just really took to it. I was like, this is fun.
Mm.
And because I don't know how to do anything in half measures, I went from going once in a week for an hour to probably spending a good 5 or 6 hours there a week, training and just going to classes. And I loved it. I just took to it really quickly. I did that right up until COVID, and unfortunately, the school closed
Mm.
during COVID and didn't open back up. But that trapeze was very much my first performance love, I suppose.
Yeah. Would you do person to person, or were you a soloist? Like I always imagine one trapeze on one side and one trapeze on the other, and then you meet in the middle and then sort of flip or grab or acrobatics in that sense.
Yeah, so that's flying trapeze.
Okay.
I would do static trapeze, which is literally just a trapeze on its own, and you would do tricks
Ah,
sort of
okay.
up in the
Sure,
ropes
sure,
and
sure,
kind of
sure.
underneath it. And yeah, you've probably seen something if you've been to a circus show, you might have seen something like
Oh,
that.
certainly, certainly.
So yeah, I did that and I loved it. I've got a trapeze tattoo actually on my ribs because I was like, yeah, first, as I said, first love.
Uh,
Um, it was just so much fun and it got me confidence, it got me strength. I said I didn't like going to the gym at the time, so it kept me fit and I made so many friends there. And as you know from the kind of burlesque world, it's the same in the circus world. It's kind of the weird kids and the
oh yeah,
outcasts,
yeah.
and they're the best people to hang out with.
I do find that since we are a bunch of neurodivergent crayons, however, that
Mm.
sometimes we can find that how we respond to things or how we have to work in administrative roles as well as a visual professionalism and things like that. Sometimes not all of us are equipped for that. But so for to go from a class environment and a play environment to also a professional. Now I have to gig. Now I have to show up on time, do the work, be entertaining, engage with the audience. It's an entirely different mindset. So
Yeah.
when did you make and how did you make that transition to being in front of other people?
So I sort of technically did it when I was still doing my circus stuff. They had like a student showcase. Um, and sort of family members knew that I did trapeze and they wanted to come and see me. So I was like, right, I'll do the performance thing. This will be fine. Um, and that was fun, but it was still sort of in that school environment. It wasn't until I actually started burlesque, started doing my burlesque classes, there was performance opportunities within that. And one thing I will say for that environment is you got the importance of professionalism were stressed then. So although we got performance opportunities, it was at local cabaret shows, it wasn't student showcases.
Mm,
So we were going into local shows and we were performing as troupes, or we were getting to do our solo acts. And that sort of very early sort of gave that idea of when you're in this environment, this is how you behave.
sure.
So I think for me, it sort of went hand in hand that if I'm performing and I'm going to be going to a show and performing at that show, this is how I behave.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and I did this sort of group stuff for like 6 months, and then again, as I said earlier, I throw myself into things. I started going to these classes, was at every single class that they ran. I was there, it was only 2 a week, so it was 3 hours a week. Um, and then was doing my first, basically debuted as a solo artist within 6 months, and then was doing gigs left, right, and centre until the world closed down, essentially.
Yay. Yeah. When did or what was the aesthetic? What was the look? What did you create Dinah Dare to bring to the world?
So my first act was a Nerdlesque act. It's technically retired, but only because I really need to redo the costume because it's old and falling apart. It's a Harley Quinn act, but by the end of it, I am Batgirl. So it's
Which
a cute
variation of
change.
Harley were you?
Very classic black and reds.
Oh, you were the actual Harley Quinn, Harley Quinn. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Margot Robbie too, and I'm not mad at the Lady Gaga interpretation either, but I'm very happy whenever somebody actually goes with,
Yeah, the classics. Yeah. I was a fan of the comics,
sure.
so um I thought would take yeah, it was just an idea that sort of swum around in my head. I know now on reflection that there was an element of there was me kind of processing some personal stuff in that act where as we all do, I think,
Hmm.
and then you realize on reflection, oh, that's what that was.
That's what that was.
Yeah. The whole concept of the act, very briefly, is I start as Harley. There's kind of a voiceover where essentially she falls out with the Joker. She then gets chased by Batman and she's like, actually, Batman, call me. And then as she strips, she looks like Batgirl. And the idea is that we change who we are for the person that we're with. And it's because I realized that that's something that I had done a lot in previous, and this was me sort of, and again, didn't realize it until a while later that that's essentially what I was kind of acting out, and that was maybe something that resonated with that character for me in
Hmm.
general.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a brilliant act. There's like a wig reveal, like I take the bunches off, so it's then just like a wee short blonde wig, and it's super cute. I love it. It just needs the costumes falling apart because it was pulled together very in a 5 week course,
Hmm.
and then I did it till it fell apart. So yeah.
Yeah. What was the song choice?
Song called AC/DC by
Joan Jett?
no, hold on, I've got my phone right here and I'll tell you because I it's so bad that I can't remember.
No, it's quite all right. We live multitudes of lives.
Perry Twins or something.
Okay.
And I've now only got the mix of it. I don't actually have because it's mixed with cuts from
Animated series?
yes, thank you.
Ah.
Can't
Thank
do words.
you.
Yep. I'm trying to look up something at the same time as talking. Yeah, I can't find it, but it's a really good song. Yeah, it's fun anyway. It's a kind of rock song. It's really good
Sure.
fun. Um, really good beat. Yeah, it's away just now, but it will come back out at some point.
When did
Um,
the Windex blue hair come into your as your signature?
I've had this variations of this for probably about 8 years now.
Okay.
It's been solidly blue for probably about four, and that's more lazy. So it used to be, I've had variations of half blue, half purple, green on top, blue underneath, vice versa.
Usually this hue
Um,
though.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Um, it's kind of been this shade for a solid 4 years. During COVID, I did that thing that everyone did where I decided to change my hair. So I bleached it and I went lilac. Had a complete identity crisis for 4 weeks and then immediately went back to blue because I was like, no, this isn't me.
Yeah. Are you a wig wearer as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I usually wear just like half hair wigs from like my fringe back,
Hmm.
just so that I don't have to style my hair.
Sure.
It's purely laziness.
So, as someone who performed in the before times and after times of the world shutdown, what was that experience like in your neck of the woods? Seeing things slowly, or perhaps not so slowly, shut down. When did shows effectively respond to the pandemic? And what is life now? I mean, obviously, you said some shows didn't survive, but do you see
Yeah.
a change in either production or audience fulfillment since then?
Yeah, so there wasn't a slow shutdown. We just basically went into lockdown. There was just an announcement, essentially. Government came out and went, that's it. You won't be, it was a Sunday evening. That's it. Everything's closed. Like, you won't be going to work tomorrow, kind of thing. Everyone was working from home. Everything was stopped. And that was the case for quite a few, most of that year. Um, Everything went online quite quickly. There was online shows happening sort of within a couple of months once people realised that this wasn't a 2 week thing like we'd all been told at the start.
Are you
So
guys
did the
too?
online. Yeah, yeah. They were like 2 weeks and we were like, cool, 3 months later, still at home. Um, so that went on, yeah, that was for a while. So everyone sort of pivoted to online shows. I did a few, but it was everyone knows this. It was a very different experience doing it in your spare room or your living room, and then you're picking your clothes up afterwards, and you're like, oh, cool, it's done. It just wasn't the same, so I didn't do a lot of them. I Everything is it just ground to a halt, to
Mm.
be honest. Once we were allowed to open back up again, some places were having people perform, but there was then that judgment of who's performing, should you be performing, how many people are there. Like some venues were starting to play kind of loose with the rules because the rules that we ended up running with at some point were ridiculous. There was periods of time here where you could go out somewhere and have a meal, but you couldn't have alcohol, because apparently that makes a difference to COVID spreading. Um, and you could watch a show, but you couldn't like everyone had to be wearing all the audience had to be wearing masks and they couldn't whoop or cheer, so they could just clap, which is a very weird experience as well. Um, and then there was a lot of judgment around if you did one of these shows that was sort of borderline playing with the fast and loose with the rules. Other
Mm.
people would be like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. So I sort of didn't perform for probably just over a year because it wasn't worth it. And also, from a personal perspective, I was I would go to my day job 9 to 5. I would then go to dance classes 2 nights a week. I would then go do circus 1 night a week. I was then probably doing a show a couple of nights a week. I was never in the house and I never sat still. COVID hit and I realised that I had been so busy because I had been running away from quite a lot.
Mm.
Um, so from a personal level, I suddenly had to accept the fact that I had an eating disorder that I had been ignoring for years. And actually all of that trauma from my past relationship I hadn't dealt with. And my COVID became more of a time for me to have to deal with that rather than worrying about performing. Like I
Sure.
still did online classes and I still sort of made an act or two, but it wasn't personally my main focus. The world shutting down made me have to face up to some things I had been running away from for a long time.
Sure. May I ask, and we don't have to talk a lot about the eating disorder aspect, but
Yeah.
was that something that was related to performing, or was that personal life? I mean, obviously there's through threads, but
Yeah. The eating disorder is very much a control thing.
Mm.
If I don't feel like I have control of certain aspects of my life, I control what I eat, and how much I exercise. So it wasn't really connected to being on stage or worrying what my body looked like on stage. By that point, it had just become it had become an ingrained way of being for me for about 10 years that I heavily controlled what I ate. And I was never happy with how I looked, and obviously now I look back at photos of myself and I'm like, yeah, the usual. You look back and you're like, there's nothing to me. Um,
we
but
waste
at the
so
time
much
you can
time.
only
We
see
waste so much time. I
so
know.
much time.
I know.
And the positive of that is that I like obviously there's some days now where you have a day where you look at yourself and you're like, oh, but for the most part, I'm very ambivalent to how my body
Mm.
looks. I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. It looks like this today. That's
Fine.
what,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we have a few icons in our industry, like Jezebel Express, who's, your body is fine. And also like Vix Pucks Plenty, who sort of encourages sort of body neutrality. Just like this is the
Yeah.
vessel.
Yeah.
Dig it. Like this.
Yes.
And we have a sort of toxic relationship with body positivity, in addition to it being, in theory, empowering.
Yeah.
But so much of that is also just surface level.
Yeah. So much of it.
Yeah.
And I think body neutrality is just for me personally, is the way to go. I am just very much, I need to feel the thing that gets me around and lets me do the things that I like to do. Like if I am too tired to travel or to dance or to spend time with my friends, then I'm not fueling myself enough. And that's kind of the way that I look at it. And also I'm very like covered in tattoos and piercings. I am very much, this is an avatar that I will decorate and I will look after just so that I can do the things that I want to do. Um, but yeah, it took me a while to get to that headspace. It's not an overnight thing. And there's still
It's
days where
ongoing.
yeah,
Ongoing, absolutely.
it'll never not be a thing, I think.
As long as you have that vessel. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's the thing, isn't it? Is it's everything is going to be different as we age, if we are so
Hmm.
lucky to. Um, Creaks and cracks will appear, and we sort of have to, and then the concept of we will all eventually be disabled one day or another in some
Hmm.
capacity, that this is what we have. This is what we have. And we can, I mean, we have some say in the wear and tear, and the presentation of and how we, respond to it. And that is also very interesting in the world of burlesque, which is so much body celebration in addition to
Hmm.
neutrality. And I don't know necessarily how you personally reconcile that, but as someone who did not have a relationship with the word fat per se, until I had to deconstruct it relatively recently. Last year, I was offered the headlining gig at Fat Lusk, and I had to say to myself, well, I guess that's what I am then, isn't it? Because I had to, because it was offered to me. It wasn't something that I went for, and I had
Hmm.
very not very enthusiastically gone after fat positivity gigs in the past. Like there were like
Yep.
fat shows or what have you. And I had sort of like, well, if you think I am, I'll do that show. I want to work. And I certainly have felt that I have lost work or not been considered because of my size in some capacity. Again, looking back 19 years ago, what a dish. And I shouldn't have necessarily been thinking so harshly or so specifically
Yep.
about my body at that time. Uh, Youth. Um,
It's wasted on the young, it really
it's
is.
so, and and I look good then, and I have to say that there are a lot of people who say I look good now. So why am I arguing with them?
Yeah.
Why am I making that? Why am I trying so hard to be like, no, you're wrong?
We
When
should
I
just
would
be like,
never do that to
yes, I am.
friends of mine. I would never do that
Yeah.
to people that I cared about. So why am I so
Hmm.
hard on myself?
Yeah.
It's rough.
And that's the thing. You just shouldn't, you should just be like, yeah, I look good.
It's how it is.
And what?
And what? And what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, this is Victor, and I would really like to thank the folks on the Patreon. It really does make a difference. I know this is one of those times in the world where we're like, who the hell has the $20? Who has the $5? Who has a buck? Well, if you do, thanks. If you can throw it at me. I understand that we have a lot of other concerns out there, what with social justice and also groceries. So if you happen to have it and you want to throw some dollar bills at the entertainment art that We Burlesque and Viktor Devonne puts out there, it helps me a great deal because there are some very real bills that come with podcasting. It's a lot of fun. It's all I know how to do, except dance around on stage and put on shows. But it does cost money. Ugh. But there are some folks who throw me some dollars on Patreon, and I would like to give them a lot of love. And those names today are Goosey Gander, Roxy Reverie, Faye Havoc, Tiffany Lane, Madam E, I Red, Shimmy LaRue, Curly Bright, Oliver Swisky, Sebastian Crane, Horace Stilton, Alex Colad, Bo Britches, Luna Delight, and Stormageddon. Y'all mean the world to me. Thank you very, so very, 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 very much. If you would like to support the pod, by doing so, you can go to patreon.com/weburlesque. If you don't have the dollars, I understand. You can also go like, follow, subscribe on all the things, even if you don't listen, but also listen. Please do that too. And comment. Not only do I see those comments and feel really good about myself, but the people that are parts of these shows get to see those comments and know that what they're doing resonates in the world. So, thank you very much. Be well. Is there a sort of in the Scottish burlesque scene a body abundance or body acknowledgement? Is there fat phobia in your realm, or any other phobia that you find predominant?
I would probably say there's pockets of fat phobia, as there is anywhere. There are certain shows that you know are only going to book certain types of performers. We sort of have a main booker in Glasgow, about a lovely human called Paul Puppet, and he doesn't have that. He will book anyone and everyone. For anyone who's visiting Scotland, I have got them in touch with Puppet, and he's got them gigs. Like, he's very much, yeah, come one, come all, which is great. But there is definitely other shows that would not cast, and I think, to be honest, it actually comes down to some of these producers have their own problems with body confidence and how their body looks, and so they will only have other types of performers on that lineup, which is insane to me. But you can definitely see that. In terms of other phobias, I don't necessarily think we have phobias. We don't have a huge amount of diversity. But we also don't have a lot of diverse performers, and I know people will give me shit for saying that. They're like, oh, they'll be out there. Genuinely, there's not a lot. And that's maybe our fault for not creating an environment where people feel comfortable enough to perform then. But there's definitely not as many. But we have quite a big drag king scene here. We have quite a lot of sort of circus acts. We have quite a few boylesque performers as well. So I think we're not too bad. I think our biggest thing is definitely, and pretty much all the bars we perform in are gay bars as well. So I would say our biggest thing is, yeah, there's probably not enough diversity as well.
Yeah. In terms of performing largely in gay bars, what do you feel your response to by these audience members? Like, how do they say, oh, there's a lady on stage? How do are they for it? Are they enthusiastic?
Yeah, definitely. I
Awesome.
love doing a gay bar. I fucking love a gay bar. Give me a gay bar over a straight bar any day of the week.
Same, but
Yeah. There's always someone who's just like, oh my God, wow, look at them. When you come out in a sparkly costume, and they're just so for it and they're so here for it. You don't have, you do a cabaret show and it's clearly the woman's brought her partner and the partner doesn't really know what to do and he's kind of sitting there and he doesn't know if he could cheer or not. You don't get that as much at a gay bar. Everyone's just there to have fun. And I definitely find that some of my best performances are in those environments because I can really play with the audience. I can have a laugh with them. Um, it's just, yeah, I love it. It's good fun. Don't get me wrong, there's some other nights. Our local kind of regular gig for most of us is a place called the Riding Rooms. It is a free show for the audience, but we get paid. Um, and sometimes you go and there's not that many people that are actually interested in watching you because it is just a free show and it's there. You've maybe only got a couple of people down the front and everyone else is at the back having
Sure,
drinks.
sure, sure.
Um,
That's
but
very
it's
old
fine.
school burlesque, isn't it? The show would just sort of go
Yeah,
on in addition to your night out. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's just there. We're there in the background taking our clothes off. But it's still fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I definitely find the environments doing gay bars is, yeah, that's home for me.
Hmm. Are you a constructor of your own wardrobe when you were stripping on stage?
Bits and
Okay.
pieces. Um, I rhinestone everything. I have been learning to sew for the past year. I've made a few bits and pieces. Um, but I have a friend who's a seamstress in Glasgow, so she's made quite a lot for me in the past. And I also try to buy bits and pieces, but I'm really enjoying learning how to sew. I'm not great at it. You don't want to look at any of my sewing skills up close, but it looks fine on stage, so it's fine.
When you're using music, are you finding that you're picking uh largely North American or other UK artists? Or is that when you bring in your Scottish pride, as it were?
Oh, absolutely not.
You're not just constantly performing to like Cocktail Twins
All the
all the
time.
time.
Just bagpipes. Um, I I don't really think of music that way. Like I think I just try and find something that fits the vibe. I am that person that will sit on Spotify and I make playlists for acts
Mhm.
and then I'll whittle that down to like what song is it that I want to do. Unless I've heard a song and I'm like I want to dance to that, that's a different story.
Sure.
But if I'm looking for an act that has a song for a particular vibe, I'm literally just scrolling through playlists, then like going on to songs radios and finding things there and just kind of curating, right, here's a set of songs that I think fit. Right, let's whittle that down. What do we think works? I like performing to things that are a bit obscure.
Mhm.
I've got a cover of a song. I've got a cover of the song One Way or Another
Mhm.
by a band called Until the Ribbon Breaks. I had never listened to this band in my life, but I found this cover on one of my various Spotify travels and was like, yes, that's it.
That's it.
So that kind of tends to be how I find music. I've just got an idea of what I want it to sound
Mhm.
like or what the concept is. And I just kind of go from there.
Is there a local determination about what is classic and what is neo? Or is that even a concern?
Yeah, classic is your kind of very typical striptease to classic music
Mhm.
in some respects. Um,
Basically, music from 80 years ago, essentially.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Your neo tends to be anything that is very much character driven, sort of nerdesque, anything along those lines. And then you've kind of got neo-classic, which is essentially your classic costumes, but maybe to more modern music with a slightly more modern twist. But to be honest, a lot of people are sort of, I don't know what it's like in the States, but I tend to find that people are falling away from those terms a lot more. When we talk about what kind of style that we do, a lot of people are sort of that I speak to are just kind of like, oh, whatever I want. And I'm the same. Like I've
Yeah.
got nerdesque, I've got classic, I've got um I've got an act that I love that's based on the film Pleasantville, which
Mhm.
I don't know if that would be nerdesque. Like I don't know. So like
Yeah, I could
yeah.
say.
So there's I think most people have quite a wide variety of styles now.
Mhm.
So that sort of terminology exists, but I don't hear it used a lot as much these days.
I hear it used a lot, but the definition and the distinction between them seems to be blending because we also are using terms that are 80 to 100 years old at this point.
Mhm.
And that I always find that the term classic does not really mean necessarily the same thing to everyone, because for a lot of people that does mean heavily rhinestoned to the gods, does mean very Marilyn Monroe, does mean that who also wasn't all that rhinestone all that often, let's be real.
Yeah.
And also means a lot of like panel skirt, gown,
Yeah.
gloves,
Mm-hmm.
very substantial neck jewelry, updo, sort of pageant drag in a certain way, um, heels, presumably. However, if you look at a lot of particularly American, because I have to admit I don't know a lot of the UK and European burlesque legend history. Um, but if you look at a lot of the photography that we have, like these are very basic costumes that
Yeah.
are not as embellished, or a piece of them is embellished, or there's a brooch, or there's
Yeah.
like one particular segment that is, and you also speak to a lot of the American burlesque legends, and they were like naked or shake dancing, and so they weren't necessarily stoned for the gods in the way that we
Mm-hmm.
anticipate a lot of our Miss Exotic worlds and our, icons within the scene, um, because that just wasn't the vibe. It just wasn't the
Yeah.
storyline. And also, a lot of these performers had 1 to 5 signature acts, and I think a lot of us encourage ourselves and others to have a good dozen in rotation for bookability. And we don't tour as much. We're not on the road as much. We have a lot more local stuff. So things like that. Um, and I find this sort of retrofitted Hollywoodization encouraged by the films. Sure, sure, sure. Um, that sort of informs what we viewed the past as is not really accurate. So when we say classic, what exactly do we mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think here it's very much what you were saying.
yeah.
It's the gown, it's the panel skirt, it's the corset,
Of course, yes.
it's
Yeah.
fan dancing, it's the boas, it's yeah, rhinestone to the gods. And I do think we put far too much onus on how much a costume is rhinestoned
Sure. It's fun to look
when
at too. It's fun to look at too. Absolutely.
it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. But a good rhinestoned costume doesn't make a good
No.
act. And I do think that sometimes we can fall into that trap of, oh my God, but it's so pretty. And
It's
it's like, yeah, but is it good?
yeah, 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 yeah. And I do love juxtaposition. I love that aesthetic, mixed with, a rock song or what have you. Like we
Yes.
have what's very common right now is to sort of have that aesthetic with either a more modern piece, but we're also uh I don't know if you've seen this, but every couple of years our references seem to update a little bit. So everything was very 70s for a while, and then everything like so a lot of disco, a lot of soul, a lot of funk. And of course
We're in the eight.
yeah.
We're very 80s right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
we are in the States, we have gone way back to the millennium. We really have in our
Yeah.
early 2000s, yes, and later, which is really funny because as someone who grew up in that period in the United States, so many of those references are older references. So they're already, deviations on earlier themes. Like, well, these aesthetics, like, what's the unique aesthetic? They're all just repeating itself. So what we
Yeah.
view as like, oh, that's a 60s aesthetic, oh, that's a 70s aesthetic. Yeah, we have a view of what the millennium, early 2000s aesthetic looks like. I don't know what today's aesthetic is because all of it is referred to from the past.
Yeah, it is. Everything's just
What's
a
new?
recycle. Nothing is new.
Nothing is
It's
new.
very it's very 80s, 90s here just now,
Yeah.
I would say. And we're getting a lot of beautifully classic costumes with, yeah, like 80s rock
Hmm.
songs and stuff. That very much seems to be the vibe right now.
And I'm all for it. I love a mix. I love a
Yeah.
blend. I just did 3 festivals in a row that showed me so many different interpretations because again, these were technically international festivals. Um,
Hmm.
Barely in some cases. I think we had some Canadians. I don't know if we had anybody from Europe or Asia or Australia, but I find that regionally everyone's coming from such a different perspective.
Mhm.
Which then that does bring me back to an earlier thing that you said about when the Americans come, as often we do to these other locations such as yours. Um,
Yeah.
do you see that there is sort of a distinctive line change in how they present themselves on stage for the audience that either makes an influence on regional burlesque, or is it's sort of it's good for a taste but not a swallow, and you stick within your own?
I think it totally
Sure.
depends. It depends who it is. It depends on their style, what they're doing. I have done a couple of festivals where there's been Americans in the festivals, which has been great. And what I do tend to find, and I've said this as someone who's went over and done American
Sure, I
festivals
was
as
going to ask you
well.
that too in a second. Yeah.
Yeah, in general, and I hate saying it, the standard and quality of performance is higher
In
in Americans. Yeah, of Americans are, and there's some fantastic performances in Europe and the UK, but I do think overall in general, American performers are of a higher standard.
Okay.
I don't know if that's one from having gone to festivals at the end of the day, that's the best of the best that are picked to be there because people apply and then you have to get through.
Mhm.
Um,
Do
or
you think
if
they're
it's
held to a
because,
higher standard, or we're just better
well,
at
that's,
everything?
I mean, you look at your president to see that that's not the
I
fact, but
know, I know. But our entertainers are fucking top notch a lot of the time too.
yeah, they are.
So,
They are.
but obviously, we as a globe, we have fantastic performers from everywhere. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if it's because, so for me right now, some of the best performers in the world are either Australian or from America.
interesting.
And I think I think for Australia, I know how competitive that is. I know that there's people over there. I know they've got some really good schools, really good competitions, and they've created a high standard for themselves that they're all continuing to bring to the table, essentially. I think in America, you guys have got the benefit of you've got all the legends there. We don't really have a lot of UK legends. We have Good Time Mama Jo, who was
Yeah,
at um Beehoff last year. She was
yeah.
actually just
She
at
was
the
a
Glasgow.
sweetheart.
Yeah, she was actually just at the Glasgow Festival at the weekend. She's lovely. So we yous have got access to that, and also maybe because there's more performers, there's more competition, so you have to up your game a bit more. I'm not sure. I've just tend to found that when I've been there, the quality of performances that I see consistently blow me
Hmm.
away. And it's made me up my game as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm. Yeah, there are a few. There's Mama Joe. I know April March.
Hmm.
I believe. I don't know if she is native to the UK, but at the very least, I know that that she has a history in the UK.
Yeah.
Um, there was Lydia. Oh, there's a legend Lydia whose last name escapes me. Tom. Now I have to look it up because I've made it go too far. Hang on. Burlesque legend Lydia Thompson. Lydia Thompson. Um,
Yes.
there we are. That became sort of that vibe between the theatricality of pantomime and showgirl, essentially.
Yep.
So when we're looking at sort of the American influence, and we are a mess in a lot of ways, but a lot of what America also does is we have a very good skill set at making the rest of the world, probably through corporations and probably through bullying, uh, emulate what we've
Yeah.
got going on.
Yes.
I don't know how we do it. I don't know why we're so influential, and I don't think it's particularly healthy. But
It, I, there's media propaganda there that's next level.
yes.
Um,
I mean,
I don't,
second only
yeah,
to to Korea and Russia. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so funny. I've said this. I grew up in 90s, 2000s, and I grew up wanting to live in America. I was like, I want to go to America. You would see all these shows like American high schools,
yeah.
American colleges, and everyone I knew wanted to move to America. And then we all got older and we went, oh
Oh
no, no, we
no.
don't.
No. And it's so funny because so many of those storylines would also involve going abroad. Like that was
Yeah,
also a huge element for a lot of these shows. Just like, oh, I'm taking a year abroad. Oh, I'm doing this. And I
yeah,
remember the concept of exchange students being so much more prevalent in media than it was in real life. Like
yeah.
the idea of that. And part of that, I think, was because of, the scripts then that could be made after that.
Hmm.
But and to show that fish out of water sort of
Vibe.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that trope. Um, yeah, yeah, we've got a lot going on. So how are things looking? I think you what, Spinney right now? Is that his name? Your prime minister?
Oh, Keir Starmer.
Oh, who was I thinking of?
No
This is what I
idea.
did for my research, and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
It's Starmer. So yeah,
Starmer.
you're not far off.
Swinney, First Minister of Scotland, office holder, John Swinney. That's what Google
Oh yeah,
says.
okay, that's why. Yeah, because we've got a devolved thing. Yeah, okay. So we have a devolved
See,
minister.
I
You're
the
right.
5 seconds
You
of
are
Google
right.
research that I did shall not be put into question. Thank you very much, Dinah Dare.
But that also shows how much attention we pay
Oh,
to
sure,
him.
sure. Okay, so
Um,
he leads the Scottish
yeah,
government of the executive branch
yeah,
of the devolved government.
yep.
The American school system has failed me. Do you know what the hell a devolved government is that you can explain to me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So devolved government is we have certain controls for certain things in Scotland. So for instance, education and healthcare are devolved. So think about it like your federal system. There is federal laws, and then you have state laws. We basically have UK laws that are set by Westminster, and then we have some things that we're allowed to control at a Scottish level, and that's a devolved government. So there's certain things that we can control directly,
Okay.
which includes things like education and healthcare. Um, so that's what it means by a devolved government. I think Wales also has a devolved government, so there's certain things that they have direct control over, but we still also have UK laws that affect us.
Sure. Okay. Do y'all care about the royal family?
No, not even a little
Not even a little bit. That's fair.
bit.
We care too much, frankly. As Americans who made a
Yeah,
lot of effort to avoid all that,
yeah,
we can't. I mean,
you care far too
we
much.
do, and that's been all of my life because I remember Princess Diana being on every fucking magazine cover.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then I think honestly, because of her death and the way that she passed, it created this sort of, oh, now we have to keep paying attention. That kind of
mm,
thing, because there's all these successors now and there's all this legacy that we can then apply back. I mean, you see The Crown. I mean,
yeah.
we can't
You,
not.
you obsessed. I
Obsessed.
think there is some people who are very obsessed with the royals, but I do tend to find it's the older generation. It's like my gran who's in her 60s and 70s. Like it's that generation. You do have some people, so we have something called the Orange Lodge. I don't know if you've ever heard of
No,
it.
but tell me more. It sounds like
Um,
Twin Peaks. Go on.
oh, I hate it so much. So the Orange Lodge, you can Google it. It's to do with the Battle of Orange, which was basically Scotland against the UK because the Scottish at various points have not wanted to be part of the UK. Um, so the Orange Lodge is very much for the Union. So we have Scotland has tried to break away from the UK. We did have a referendum about that a few years ago. We ended up staying part of the UK, but there was quite a lot of the country don't want to be part of the UK anymore. Scotland wants to be independent.
We covered
Yeah,
Brexit, but we never really identified in my feeling. We never really broke down the plot line.
yeah, yeah. So so Scottish independence was the year before the Brexit referendum.
Okay.
So we had a referendum as to whether or not we wanted to be part of the UK anymore. Um, it came out, it was really close. It was like 52% of people wanted to stay part of the UK, so we stayed part of the UK. The Orange Lodge is very pro-union, it is very pro-monarchy. They do marches in the summer where it's to um, mark the Battle of Orange, where they go around with their pipes and their drums, and it's very associated with Protestants and Catholics
Sounds very
in
Northern
Scotland,
Ireland.
and it
Yeah.
also exists in Northern Ireland, but we have it here in Scotland as
Right.
well. So they're the kind of people that are very pro monarchy, pro the United Kingdom. Most people I know don't care. When the Queen died, there was so many jokes being made. Um, she actually,
That's
I
also possibly
was,
generational too. But
yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
But yeah, we didn't really care. For the whole Meghan and Harry stuff, didn't really care. Yeah, we're not particularly interested. But again, it depends who you talk to. I think most people my age and younger don't really care anymore, to be honest.
I think a lot of it is not even necessarily having a deep-seated relationship with these institutions, but also
Hmm.
the whenever somebody of iconography status or someone who's always been there, it shifts the world because it shows us our own impermanence,
Yeah.
and that can get really scary. So even if you didn't really care about pop star number six passing away, the fact that they're not there anymore, it shows that you have absolutely no control over anything,
Hmm.
and that can be substantial. So we just had the Pope pass away. And while
Yep.
I haven't necessarily paid attention to what the Pope was saying since it was John Paul, and that was
Yeah.
only because he was fucking everywhere, because
Yeah.
he was a controversial pick. Um, it's weird to have that sort of situation. And again, the Queen being the Queen, in my head, it's Helen Mirren, or it's Olivia Colman, or it's
Yeah.
yeah, same, yeah, Olivia Colman. Or it's these larger than life figures that I kind of know. Diana was a big
Hmm.
one because again,
Yeah.
she also was a queer icon as someone who did not yet know what I was, but she was given the
Yeah.
same attention as Madonna and
Hmm.
shortly after the death of Versace and things like that, and Elton John and like these, and
Yeah.
seemed like a great gal. Just frankly, seemed like a great gal. Um, so we have these relationships with where they fit in the world, not necessarily who they are as people or how they, jive with our laws or culture.
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
think it is interesting that Americans seem to be, like as you said, like low-key obsessed with the
absolutely.
monarchy
It's not
because
high key.
yeah, because you went out of your way to not have anything to do with it. But now you're like, oh, but look at it. But I do think that that actually speaks to a small obsession with history because you're a very young country
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of the world. And I always find that there's this deep-seated need to talk about, oh, this is my ancestry and this is, where I came from.
Mhm.
That is, I couldn't tell you my ancestry. Most people I know
Yeah.
couldn't tell you their ancestry. But we walk down the street and there's buildings that are 5, 6, 7, 1,000 years old. There's a castle that's been there since like the beginning of time. So,
So many churches.
so many churches.
Yeah.
So we just don't think about it as much. Whereas I think the lack of shared history in America creates this sort of weird identity crisis where you're looking for that something to connect you to a past.
Without having to address our own fucked up history in America.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love doing that. We
Yeah,
don't
you
want to
love
talk
to ignore that.
about our own, essentially apartheid, but we'll talk
Yeah.
about what happened in Britain. We'll talk about Henry VIII. We fucking love
Yeah.
that sort of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, everyone loves to tell me they're like, "Oh, I'm 1/8 Scottish," and I'm like, "Cool." I don't know what you want me to do with that.
Well, as someone who also is about 1/8 or 16th or what have you. Yeah, but that's also that's the sort of fascinating thing about like white supremacy too, is that well, obviously there's much fascinating and much terrifying about it, but
Yeah.
the idea that I grew up knowing so specifically about the uh Polish, Lithuanian, and Hungarian uh quarters of me. Did I know a lot about the cultures? No, not really. I have a vague understanding about each of them. I probably know more about the Polish by virtue of, World War II. And a bit more of Hungarian, possibly because that's the one that my grandmother most identified with. But that last
Okay.
quarter is a mess. It's Irish, it's Scottish, it's British, it's Dutch. It's evidently Cherokee. I haven't done a 23andMe, but I've been told. So like I grew up with that, like knowing that and sharing that with people, and that's a very, white kid kind of growing up. And that's why whenever somebody just devolves it to like a white power supremacy sentiment, it's like, but you also have all these like little tiny things. No one's saying you can't be proud of your nationality. It's when you group it all together and say, like, that's no, honey, no, honey.
Yeah, like your country is literally made up of people who came from elsewhere
Yeah.
for a large part of it.
Uh-huh. And the
Like,
ones that were here first, we did a whole lot of work to get rid of.
yeah, you did.
Yeah.
It just kind of baffles me a little bit that, yeah, and as you said, especially when you combine that with this concept of like white supremacy, and it's like, yeah, you probably know what your background is, so what are you?
I
Yeah,
know.
they're like, I'm 100% American, and it's like, yeah, except for when you decide that you're one quarter whatever from over there, like,
To sort of validate. And don't forget, we want to talk about how the Irish were slaves and how the Italians weren't considered white. We love doing that too. But for folks who are curious about how the Irish, more about the Irish, check out the Music That Made We with Rex Halligan. There's a whole musical episode on the podcast network where Rex goes through a lot of the Irish history, just shy of the Troubles. So check that out, audience at home. Um, but as you said, like you don't really have lot of Scottish pride, as it were. I've never had a lot of loyalty to my state or my country. And I think that's not because I'm not happy to be here, although sometimes I'm not. Um, and I don't obviously like I participate in capitalism, but I think it's bullshit. I kind of have to, don't
Mhm.
I?
Yeah.
Um, and I find much of the institutions were stacked against me. Um, but not because I'm a white guy, tell you that right now. But we have a lot of class issues and we have a lot of social issues. There are people who would like me to leave by virtue of being uh, a queer guy who is mad at our government. Well, why don't you just leave?
Mm.
Pay me to leave.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Yeah, it's not cheap. It's not cheap to leave.
And that's the thing also, yeah, I've chosen to stay and fight because I don't have an alternative. Like,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily because I have some, righteous belief that we can somehow make it better because, history tells me that we're going to go through waves of this for the rest of our lives. But I was here first. Don't tell me that I
It's
have to go just because I'm mad at this. I mean, I was mad at all the administrations eventually.
yeah, all of them at some point fucked up. It's so interesting. So my partner works in diversity, inclusion, and equality work. That's his line of work.
Hmm.
And when all this was kind of happening over the past few years, I remember us having conversations where he's like, you see it consistently in history where we make so many leaps and bounds, it's almost like stretching a rubber band. And then the rubber band gets let go and we bounce so far back. And that's what's happening just now, is everything's bouncing back and people are railing against the progress that we've made. And it doesn't help that from what I can see, the generation underneath us doesn't seem to be continuing to be progressive. They seem to be also regressing. So we're just our millennials in the middle. Like, we're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Are you looking for a show where the glamour is real and the stories are juicy? Learning about history is fascinating, especially when it's all glitter and glam.
Join May December and me, Iona Fortune, for Let's Burlesque, where every episode dives into the dazzling world of burlesque legends, scandals, and stardom.
You can find us twirling it on TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. And check out even more backstage goodies on our blog at letsburlesquepodcast.wordpress.com.
Because talking about burlesque history keeps the tassels spinning.
You can find Let's Burlesque Podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Papa Pasty.
Are you still in your 30s?
Yeah, I'm 36 next month.
36 next month. Yeah, as someone who is I get by virtue of just I accidentally became a queer elder by surviving. And the reason I say that is because we lost a generation through the HIV crisis. The waves of fear and hiding and closeting and demonization of queer people and the intentional division that the outside is forcing within ourselves to make trans people the enemy, to make this person untrustworthy. It's working so well. And it's so disheartening at how quickly and how successfully it is happening.
It's one of the things that, going back to what we were talking about earlier, how America likes to export its culture. It's very much exported that to here, unfortunately. Just last week, we had the Supreme Court decide that, trans women are not women, apparently.
Yeah. They don't talk about trans men, which I always find to be so specific in language.
There's a clip kicking about on TikTok where there's a woman speaking to one of our representatives in government, basically saying that the law means that trans men have to use the women's toilets. And it blows this man's mind. You can literally see him going, he literally says, I don't understand. And she has to break it down. And his tiny mind blows up because it's obviously not being considered.
Yeah.
It's consistently just overlooked.
No.
Which is, it's wild. And there's been lots of protests here throughout the past couple of weeks, but it's that, and we've also started to have a lot more people protesting at abortion centres, which we never used to have in this country. That's something that's increased the past few years.
You never had the protests, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So y'all were...
We maybe have like one or two people, but it wasn't that bad. But Glasgow has actually now had to have a buffer zone. So people cannot protest within a certain zone limit of centres anymore because of how bad it was. So that's new. We've never had that. So again, you're kind of exporting the worst parts of your culture and you can have it back.
We don't want it either. I know. Well, because we've overturned Roe v. Wade, obviously, and I know that I believe the UK, when y'all covered this in the 60s, y'all handled this a lot earlier. And if it's getting contested there, it really does show that there is for as much talk as our right wing or our conservative folks talk about anti-globalization, there really is they don't have a problem with globalization as long as the US is leading the way. Or as long as the US
this is the thing. So many of these groups are backed by American groups. That's the thing. So a lot of the protesters that we're seeing at one of the abortion clinics in Glasgow, quite a lot of them are American, and they're also backed by a lobby group that's to do with like American Christianity. So I'm kind of just looking at it going, we did colonialism, we did this, can you not?
Yeah. It's a mess. It's a fucking mess. Oh.
You can take that back. We don't want that. We'll
I
take
don't.
we'll take your sparkly costumes and your performers,
All
but you can
right.
take it.
I know. Yeah, and then we do have, I mean, obviously we're very divided as a nation and always have been, evidently, when it comes to a lot of things, but we're also mean. We're getting really mean again.
Hmm.
Cruel. We're getting really cruel again. And there was a time where that was out of fashion. Cruelty was out of fashion. We had this whole comment of political correctness, which now we have replaced with an anti-woke phraseology. But
Yep.
we've always had, resistance to inclusivity. And because the more voices we hear, the less that certain voices are in charge, and people have to then, struggle to get their words in edgewise. But we're getting real mean again, and I don't like it.
Hmm.
I don't like it at all. I don't know if you've experienced this locally as well, but I mean, you also have you have a different relationship with language, as well. I mean, I don't think the word cunt is treated the same way in the UK as it is here. That's still like
Uh,
the utmost of the worst possible.
yes, not in Scotland.
No,
It's we say the word cunt all the time.
all the time,
All the time.
all the time.
It's very much like you can call someone a good cunt because then
Yeah,
they're a good person. Like, yeah, like that's our language is very fluid in that respect. I think Scottish is almost we are aggressively complimentary and that we will compliment you, but it will be with like a bunch of swear words.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Um, which is fun. But I find when I come over to America, I have to watch my language because I swear a lot.
Sure.
Um,
Is there anything, I
so
mean,
I
not that I expect you to say anything untoward or, fucked up, but is fuck even an issue much over there?
no, not really. I say
Yeah,
that in my day job all the time.
really? Okay.
Um,
Sure.
yeah.
Even in television. What about like the BBC or the what's the
So we
equivalent?
have, yeah, so we have Watershed. So in television, anything like that's after 9 p.m. Um, on, yeah, like the BBC and stuff like that. So that's
Our
when we have that.
watershed is so minimal in comparison. We used to have ass on the air all the time in the 90s. And then we got real fucked up after the Super Bowl that one year. But
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
we're
remember that.
so stupid. We're just so stupid.
You just tend to overreact to things a lot.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
we're opportunists. So
Yeah.
we're waiting. We're biding our time. And then as soon as that door creaks open just a little bit, we will force our way through and we will create that legislation. We'll create that social construct. We will fuck with you because we saw that opportunity. And that's
Yeah.
what we're doing now. That's what we've always done. But we're seeing the opportunity to um, basically be horrible classist, racist, misogynists, um, by addressing something that doesn't even involve most people, which is trans identity, or rather than deconstruct our other stuff that leads us to an inequality or what have
Yeah.
you. We're rolling back DEI, and inclusion. We're pretending that that was never a good thing, and we're equating it, um, even incorrectly, to affirmative action, which wasn't even a bad thing then, but we're equating it with that, which it actually doesn't even have um, the relationship with that. It's its own thing. It's its own thing. But because we have racism so prominently emboldened to make that okay again, um, we're saying the quiet parts loud again, and it's like,
Yeah. We're seeing that over here though. Like even the area that I live in, it's not a great area. It's
okay,
cheap, but it's not necessarily a great area. Um, but I do think most people are relatively progressive, but it's like a 20-minute walk to my gym. And obviously walking here is very much a normal thing. I know that that's every time I've been to
depends
America,
on
no
the
one seems
area.
to walk anywhere
Depends where
there.
you are.
So
LA, no. New York,
Fair.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a 20-minute walk, and I was walking down there. It was like January, and there was this older man, maybe in his 60s or 70s, and he was putting signs, like placards, out on a kind of government building railing that was things like basically talking about not wanting immigrants here. And I went to gym, walked back, and it had already been removed. The police had already been out and been removed it because we have like hate speech laws and there's certain things that you can't say and stuff like that. And that's not like a casual protest. Um, but the opposite is we have Glasgow has a concept. There's a word that Glasgow's made up, which is refugee. So if you live in Glasgow, you're called a Ouija.
Okay.
Right, so you're a Glaswegian, so you're a Ouija. So they've made that word refugee, which is essentially that we welcome refugees into Glasgow, and it's like a whole thing, and people are very welcoming, and it's a very lovely concept, and there's a charity around it. So, and that those sort of gatherings have a lot more people, but we do now have more people that are a lot more emboldened. We actually don't speak to my partner's dad anymore because the first time that Trump was in power, it emboldened him to be more racist to the point where I sat at his dinner table on Christmas Day, which is also his birthday, and told him he was a racist cunt. And I
And
wasn't
you didn't
allowed to
mean that
come
in a good
back.
way. You didn't
I
mean cunt
didn't
in a
mean it
good
in a good
way.
way. It was a very
Yeah,
bad way.
very bad way.
But it's emboldened him, and we just don't talk to him anymore. So you're seeing because that's becoming acceptable language in US media, which so much US media is in our day to day now, it is emboldening people to be like that as well. And Brexit didn't help because that was all about, oh, we don't want immigrants in this country, and if we're not part of the Schengen zone, then people can't just come here for our benefits. And that was never the issue, but
Mm.
immigrants always end up becoming the scapegoat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And that would be like really helpful if people who are so quick to say, oh, what about the Irish? What about the Italians and how they were treated in the United States at certain points, if they couldn't just then use that to amplify their empathy rather than what about what people are also going through? Like, okay, so you're so close to saying that that was also fucked up, but you're not willing to admit that the police brutality or uh the housing crises or anything like that. You're not willing to say that that's the same then, but you think it's the same. Somehow there's a disconnect. And of course, yeah, we also have there's no a strong uh, anti-Jewish or an anti-Muslim sort of all of these things are also rolled into our mix. Yeah,
Yeah, you guys seem to have a much stronger anti-Jewish sentiment than we do.
we have
That's
these
not as much the
conspiracy
thing
theories
here.
that they quote run
Yeah.
everything. That's sort
Yeah, I've
of
heard them.
yeah. Well, and which is, of course, an interesting concept is if they run everything, then why are they so constantly maligned? That's an interesting
Yeah.
aspect too. Um, hmm,
But you're
uh,
asking people to think in a
create, yeah,
logically
critically
straight
think.
line.
That's the issue, isn't
Critical
it?
thinking skills are not people's strong point.
No. And of course, obviously, we have our own complicated history with the war in Gaza and the occupation, and we have a lot of strong
Mhm.
feelings about the occupations in a lot of countries, as a country that frequently occupies. But we haven't really even been able to deconstruct our relationship with Vietnam. We don't know how to do that. We don't know, or again, we'd rather talk about the royals because that's not us. That's somebody else.
The way I
Uh,
describe America, and I've said it to a few people, you're just a toddler in the nicest way. Like the country is just a big toddler. You're still working out what you are and who you are on the world stage, but you've got a lot of power. So you're kind of a toddler throwing your toys out the pram.
yeah, yeah,
Unfortunately, those
uh,
toys are hitting every other country and causing
and that
problems everywhere.
pram is full of shit.
It's full of shit. Flinging your tariffs
Oh,
everywhere and
no.
I
I
don't
know.
yeah,
I know. Are
it's
things are
scary. Like
things increasing? How does inflate? I mean, folks at home, I know that often we talk about, like performance and everything, but chill with me just a second. This is my opportunity to find about how has inflation hit your locality? Is it a
Some
thing?
things are a bit cheap, but things are a bit more expensive. Yeah, like our food has went up, but that's been slowly increasing for a few years. It's not really tariff impacting us in any way. We do have a lot of American things, we do have a lot of American foods, but for the most part, yeah, cost of foods went up a bit, but that's kind of it.
Yeah.
It's not like a market difference. It's not something we'd necessarily notice. Um, but again, I say that as someone who is privileged in terms of the money that I make from my day job, so I don't notice it as much. Maybe if I was like closer to living on the breadline, then I
The
would
red
notice it a lot
the
more.
red line you said?
Breadline?
Bread line. Okay, that does mean the same thing here. Okay. Yeah, I get you. I get you.
So I don't necessarily notice it as much. I think the biggest thing for me is obviously I said when we last spoke is I won't be applying for any festivals in the USA. Um, it doesn't feel safe. I am coming over to attend BHOF, partly because the way things are going, there is a genuine worry that like I- how long will performing be allowed to be a thing in the States if you keep going the way it's going? So I was like, I'll attend BHOF before it stops being a thing.
No. Yeah, if folks are unaware, the Burlesque Hall of Fame itself is under direct fire because of the Nevada uh laws and how they want to handle 501c3s, which is the type of corporation that it is. And because it is a delightfully depraved art form, we've always had to fight for recognition. They're under direct attack for funding, and that's a scary, scary thing because they are at least our North American place where we have so much history kept and celebrated. So while yes, we have burlesque across the world, most of the most physical history is kept at the Burlesque Hall of Fame.
Yep. And it's
So
sort of it's a pilgrimage to go as a
indeed,
performer, I think. Um,
indubitably, yeah, I hadn't gone until last year. It just
yeah, was
hadn't
it
lined
good? Did
up.
you enjoy it?
I
Did you
did,
enjoy
yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was I have to admit, and this is just my feeling of it, is it was a little smaller than I expected it to be. I
Okay.
expected it to be, and that's just the location that it is. I know there are so many more things that it could include if it had the funding and the space, the ability to,
Yep.
exist. But because it is in relatively close quarters, it's a quick trip, relatively going
Yeah.
through. I mean, yes, you can read all the placards, look at the photos, see the physical artifacts from the past, including a Gypsy Rosalie and such. But these collections that Dixie Evans had and kept that have been, but I know there's so much in storage. I know there must be
Yeah.
so many things that don't make it there, and I'm really glad that at present there is the rotational exhibit that celebrates um, Latin and Latino and Hispanic artists that is there right now,
Mhm.
which was extraordinary to look at, from Marinka to newcoming performers like Marie LaPearl in Virginia. To see that equalized and prominent was really fabulous. Also including Jacqueline Box, because that also includes the intersectionality. Um, Marinka also including intersectionality because Marinka was a trans woman. Um, It was really cool. Really, really, really cool. I would love, but it made me want more. It was a
Yeah.
tease, if you will. It made me
That's
want
the
more.
point.
I know, but I want a whole second floor. I want a whole second floor.
The
Yeah.
the there's an Instagram called the Great British Striptease, and they've just started a website where they're trying to collect basically the history of British striptease for at least the last 25 to 30 years online.
Hmm.
So that's quite cool. There's a lot of archives and photos that they're sort of trying to pull together and performers as well. So they're trying to digitize that because we don't really have anything like that here.
Hmm. I mean, it requires a great deal of effort. I mean, I remember hearing about, well, like for a while in the United States, it was all just Joe Weldon posting in news groups.
Yeah.
And as someone who really enjoys archiving, I mean, it's one of the reasons that this podcast exists is to sort of get things on record. And admittedly, with the ephemera of the internet and the ephemera also of live performance, when I put these out, I don't know the longevity of them
Yeah.
immediately. Like, I don't know if people are going back 3 months, 3 years and listening to those episodes. But I know at one point, unless the world blows up, that will be accessible in 4 to 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, in
Yeah.
20 years to hear what was going on then. But since we're a very like of the moment culture,
Mhm.
we're only staying within the last year or two. Folks from before that I've talked to before, all of those are preserved in some capacity, as much as we can preserve things.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's cool.
That is cool. You're
My
just
little
like
my
collect
little contribution to
your
that.
your own little Hall of Fame with
Kind
everyone
of.
there.
I mean, kind of. I mean,
Hmm.
the shtick of it really was this is the preservation of the backstage conversation that we never really get to hold on to, with the exception of the stuff that we can't put on record. Uh, which is fun too. And this is one of the reasons that I say that, can you imagine if we were on Reddit? Can you imagine if we actually did have an industry that had this outside voice, had this outside influence telling us what they think of us? We don't have that.
No.
We really don't. And the reason I keep mentioning that, so regular listeners, thank you. I know I've talked about this a lot, but it still is really fascinating to me, the concept that we are so insular and that we are so,
We're so insular. And I
yeah,
think we sort of within the community we have a tendency to talk the talk, but no one is there to hold us accountable for actually walking the walk either. Like talking about com- being more inclusive or being talking more about, I always hear people saying, oh, we need to talk about money more, but no one actually does it, and there's no one to hold us account, and there's no one to tell us if what we're doing is right or not. We just have each other.
right. And as much as the concept of cancel culture is pervasive in our lexicon, it's really not an accurate statement. We have people who are well known for being terrible people that still work.
Yeah.
They just moved. Like
Yeah.
there are people that in our high estimation in the North American burlesque that just moved to Europe. And probably we have some exports in the America that Europe is like, I don't know about that, but we don't really care about. And then we also have the ones that were bastards in XYZ state that are still in XYZ state, where they didn't even feel like they had to move. And we get really gatekeepy and protective of our industry on occasion, so we want people out. I don't think we're
Yeah.
really interested in redemption,
No.
frankly. Um,
Mm-mm.
but it
That's an
doesn't matter.
interesting concept because when does holding someone accountable turn into just bullying?
I don't know. I don't know.
No.
And sometimes bullying works, frankly.
Yeah, no, that's the thing.
Yeah. And I mean,
Like when are we holding people accountable for their shitty actions and getting them to change, and when are we just consistently bullying someone to make them be
make
what
them
we
do
want them to be,
something.
even if they're not? Yeah.
I guess cruelty. I guess if we get really personal, but sometimes that works too. Like it's such a shame. I don't want people to feel comfortable saying shitty things to people that to get them to realize that they're being assholes. Um, but sometimes you gotta say, okay, but you're kind of being an asshole right now,
Yeah.
and
I
I
see
don't
this
know.
as like there's been a big thing. I don't know how much you've seen of it, but the whole World Burlesque Day.
Oh
Um,
my, yes.
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 That kind of blew up originally in the UK,
Mhm.
around what happened with that, and the person has been called out, and there's been consistent calls out and consistent posts and messages, and it's like, yeah, that person needed calling out, but at what point do we have we went past the point of she's not going to change?
Right.
She's made that really clear.
I guess at that point you stop fucking with them. I mean, at this point, that's the change in the language then, isn't it? Because we say
Yeah,
this person is having an issue, this person issue, and then you start saying, "Oh, we don't do that. We
yeah.
don't
We
we
just
don't
say we
participate in
don't
this."
work with them. We just
Yeah,
don't work with them, and
because then we know that the change isn't coming.
yeah,
Is you, and that doesn't mean that other people won't still work with them. It doesn't mean that people don't think that that individual isn't right, frankly.
yeah.
And that goes everywhere from us to quote cancelable musicians to political figures to J.K. Rowling. Like we have, there is no consensus on how we handle these things. And I think because again, insular, that word again, we pretend that we have some sort of agreement, whether we think we're the Borg or we are a hive mind in some capacity, for those who don't know what the Borg is.
I
But
like
some,
that reference.
thank you, thank you. But we're not. We're really not. We are we again we're all these neurospicy crayons that uh holding people accountable is also going to mean something different if you don't agree with that, what that person's being held accountable for. And
Hmm.
if you don't believe that this person is being, like I see it, like I think that there are people who have made really fucked up decisions, and then we take that opportunistic time where someone kind of steps out of the way to then bring up all the other fucked up things that they may have done, but that doesn't have a relationship with what you're calling out right now,
Yep.
and you kind of seem like an asshole for dumping on that person when that wasn't what was going on right here. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and we do that with people who die too. Like we either canonize them or we say, don't forget this person also did really shitty things. Don't like them. Um, I don't have to tell you that as a European, that like one of your most divisive individuals was Margaret Thatcher, or what have you. And people will have different relationships with that. I don't know. The Pope. We have things with that too, because there are people who consider him a woke Pope, as it were, because he was too inclusive, and yet did not a whole lot to stop, the sex abuse scandals in his community. That seems like the wrong word, but in his
His congregation,
yeah,
his world
yeah.
congregation. I'll be
And
honest, the only thing I know about that Pope is the running joke that JD Vance killed him.
yeah, and that's
That's
a relatively recent
I
aspect.
know.
Yeah, yeah. There and he did, but and there was there's weird thing where there's this, I don't know the Italian word for it, but it actually kind of translates to the word faggotry essentially. And he
Okay.
was talking about how there is a faggotry in running course through in the priesthood. And well, yes. But the fact that he used that word was apparently such a scandal that he would actually say that. And of course the gays, we love a complicated narrative. So there are people that were
Hmm.
very pro him using that word and thought that to be quite cunt. And also people
I
who
like
thought
that.
that that was not so cool because, you know, yeah, so weird. So weird. See, moments ago, so off the record, we were talking about how long my episodes can be, and you were like, sometimes they just keep going and going. And yet, here we are. Welcome to
Yeah, I've done
that.
it. I've done
Well,
it.
welcome to that, Dinah Dare, and I facilitated it, and I'm happy for it. Um, Obviously, the service has just been narrowly scratched, but I look forward to seeing you in person. As you said, you're going to the Burlesque Hall of Fame. I, in fact, will also be there as
Yay.
well. Come visit the merch table. That's where I will be stationed, and then, of course, we'll see each other at the parties and
Yes.
the events. I'm looking forward to it.
So,
Um, and again, it's another event that is not without its discussion and technically scandal. It's an insular scandal, so nobody cares about it except us. But obviously, with the
but we
continued
love a scandal. We love a
do
scandal.
fucking do. with the relationship of Miss Exotic World being M Exotic World, and seeing it could be an entirely different honorific this year for an individual, which is fascinating and cool.
Oh,
Um, and again, this sort of
yeah.
rollback culture that we're experiencing in America, and as you've pointed out, is also happening in your neck of the woods.
Mhm.
Um, it's nice to see some resistance to that and moving forward, because
Even if it's small.
I don't know when inclusion has ever been the problem. I really don't.
It
History
hasn't.
has
It's just the
only been
latest.
exclusion.
Yeah, it's just the latest scapegoat
I
in a
know.
very long list of line of scapegoats. And yeah, people just need something to blame for their own misfortune.
But it's also a damn shame when the people who are actually successful also make it their issue, because then you can say, oh, we love to say, oh, you're just living in your mom's basement talking on the internet, which I think we need to address the potential classism of that statement, Americans. I think we need to address the possibility that suggesting that someone's opinion is automatically irrelevant because they live in their mom's basement is actually an issue. However, because I'm starting to be like, uh, what a privileged statement, actually. But when it is people like, our icons who are successful that are raging against progressiveness, in the Burlesque Hall of Fame, or, are rich people that are saying these people are the problem.
Mhm.
It's so much easier when those people are just total non inconsequential fuckheads.
Yeah,
But when
it's
they have
harder
people with,
when a platform.
yeah, yeah, and a crown. Those
Yeah.
crowns are important, folks. That gives you something. I'm aware very much that this podcast, while its reach is small but mighty, uh, that things that are said on it, as I said, will be hopefully listenable in 20 years. And I can't promise that everything will have aged well, but I'd like to think that the concept of saying don't push people out, don't don't treat people badly by the virtue of their sexuality, gender expression, or skin tone, are going to age well. I'm hoping that
Fingers crossed. Fingers
that
crossed.
notion has, well,
Yeah, I think Be Off will be fun. I'll definitely come and spend all of my money at the merch table. Um, because what else would I do? It'll be
indeed.
interesting to see if there's a bit of a tone with it all based on kind of the conversations that have happened online around the title, or
Possibly.
if
I mean,
it'll
last year
just
it happened too. I mean, last year,
yeah, last year
and the
was
year before that were responses to,
yeah.
um, and let's just say it. I'll say it. Samsonite was the first uh cisgender masculine male to win Miss Exotic World. And we
Hmm.
had trans representation and gay male representation in the lineup as well.
Yep.
The next year, we still had all of these representations, and a person of color won the title of Miss Exotic World, kept it Miss Exotic World, which was um, Honeybee Rose. And this year, there is a possibility that it will be any number of people, because we are fortunate to have people of all different crayon boxes up for it.
Hmm.
I think that crayon box could be a little bigger,
Yep.
but that box, it's on the way. I see, and I'm very happy, Dustin. Thank you for your efforts, Dustin Wax, the curator of the Burlesque Hall of Fame. I see the work you're doing, and I see the folks that you're rising up against, and not bowing to, and I see the anti-racism efforts. I see the anti-gender bias efforts, and there's always going to be progress to be made, because as we fight against that rollback,
Yep.
it is what it is.
I like
Yeah.
just seeing more like not traditional classic acts on that stage. That's what I enjoy.
Mm.
I'll be honest.
Sure.
That's such a basic thing, but I was like, yay.
Yeah. 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 Well, goodness gracious.
Yeah,
Dinah
no,
Dare.
I need to go to my bed. I have work tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I'm keeping you up. Before I let you go, is there a specific reference to where Dinah Dare comes from, or did it just sound fun?
I wanted the names to both have the same letter,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted Dare because I was still doing my circus stuff at the time, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
kind of daring part of
Mm-hmm.
it. So yeah, that was kind of it really. And then there is in certain parts of Scotland, you would say "Don't you dares" and "Don't you dare do that" as if "Dinna dare," like "Dinna dare do that."
Mm-hmm.
So it's meant to be like "Dinah dare."
It's like a Courtney Act situation. You kind of need the accents to make it work.
You need
Okay.
the accent for it to work.
Uh,
So it only works in very specific circumstances.
it
But
still is a
Scottish
fine
people,
name. It just isn't a pun,
yeah,
unless you have the
Scottish
accent.
people always get it. And yeah,
Dinah
yeah,
Dare,
that's
Dinah
kind of
Dare,
where it
Dinah
comes
Dare.
from.
Gotcha,
Hmm.
gotcha, gotcha. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Well, I'm also
Yeah,
impressed that we had all this conversation and I didn't mention Shrek or Brave once. So,
I'm so proud of you. Well done.
oh, thank you. Can you tell the folks at home the best ways that they can keep in touch with all of the things you have going on?
Yeah, their Instagram at Dinah_Dare. I also do the YouTube, which is again just Dinah_Dare there as well, and the TikTok, which is exactly the same. And I kick about on Facebook, but there's really no point because anything that I post on Instagram also gets posted on Facebook. So
Sure. And obviously, TikTok is still an Asian-owned company, but do you find that there is censorship in the same way, in any way, via TikTok? I find a lot in American usage. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
we see all your protests, but none of you guys seem to see your own protests, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people in America post about how they aren't seeing that there's all these protests happening, but like we see it. It's very strange.
Yeah. The algorithm's on purpose. Nothing's an accident.
Oh
Nothing
yeah.
is by
I definitely
chance.
think that when it was shut down and opened back up again, you guys had a slightly altered algorithm.
Yeah. Oh, that was I mean, that was just so
Hmm.
fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of, I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody how to make their content and use all of the devices that are given to you. But I don't think I've logged back into TikTok since that happened because I'm like, whatever. I don't care. I just don't care anymore. I barely cared in the first place. Because invariably if it's going viral on TikTok, someone will screen share it and post it on Instagram. So,
It always makes it onto Instagram eventually.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
Twitter
like
posts
being
make it
I'm
to Instagram, so
oh yeah, oh yeah, I'm not on that anymore. God no.
I understand. I understand.
That's a
Uh,
dumpster fire.
absolutely, it absolutely is. But also, like sort of like how Tumblr worked too, is that was sort of like the screen
Hmm.
share of the Reader's Digest screen share of all of the others.
Yeah.
But it's been a pleasure, and I also want to thank you for being part of the We View series as well. I had you as a guest, a panelist.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you back, folks. If you don't know, We View is a panel show where other people besides me talk about burlesque things going on, and you had lovely insights, not only about the at the weekly topic, which was included things like the ethics of subscribing to a colleague's OnlyFans, but also about other things that have to do in the world of burlesque. And again, as America tends to be insular, always glad to have an outside perspective as well, to see what we don't quite, because our forest and our trees, it's hard to see both sometimes.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, no, I've loved this chat and I love being on the panel, so I would definitely be back.
Absolutely. Folks at home, if you would like to throw some dollar bills, we're at patreon.com/We Burlesque. There's also lots of other ways that you can help us out as season 9 continues and all these other activities, including the music that made We and the We View and anything else that comes back up on the podcast network. You can also like, follow, subscribe. That also really helps. And if you are following a podcast or you are following anybody's content, throw a comment. I know that seems really basic, but that seems to be the most useful redirection of said algorithm. Those likes are lovely. but they're not changing. They're not giving us the reach. Comments seem to be the thing right now. So do that for me and do that for everybody else. So, Dinah, continue to thrive, however that manifests, and see you in like 2 months. How
I
exciting!
know, it's so soon.
All right, bye, darling. Bye.
Right, bye.
Go to bed.
I will. Bye.
Bye, sweetheart. We Burlesque the Podcast, created, developed, and edited by Viktor Devonne. Podcast artwork by Logan Laveau. We Burlesque the Podcast cover art photography by Atticus Stevenson. Theme song, On a 45 by This Way to the Egress, used with permission. All incidental music via Pixabay under the expectation of fair use. Please visit WeBurlesquePodcast.com for notes on this and every other episode. Follow We Burlesque and Viktor Devonne on just about every platform, and support the podcast via patreon.com/WeBurlesque. Don't got the cash? Please follow, subscribe, and give 5 stars on every platform you can get your hands on. It really does help. All original material is owned by Viktor Devonne and White Elephant Burlesque Corporation. All other materials property of their respective copyright. No infringement, while likely, is intended. This episode and all episodes thereafter are in memory of Lucky Charming. Miss you, friend. And that's it.
Woohoo!